Hello and welcome to Indus News live from Islamabad. I'm Jawad Tehami and these are the headlines. Pakistan's Prime Minister Imran Khan says India is behind the terror attack that killed 11 coal miners in Balochistan last week. Speaking after visiting victims' families in Quetta, Khan said ISIS has complete backing of India. He hailed efforts of security forces and intelligence agencies to curb sectarian violence in the country. A passenger plane with more than 50 people on board has gone missing after takeoff from the Indonesian capital Jakarta. Officials say the Sriwijaya Air Boeing 737 lost contact en route to West Kalimantan province. The Transport Ministry said search and rescue efforts are underway. The Afghan government says its forces have killed 13 Taliban fighters while repelling their attack in northeastern Takhar province. The Defense Ministry says 8 other fighters were wounded in the retaliatory raids. However, the Taliban have claimed to kill a commander and 5 soldiers during the attack on a checkpost in the province. Twitter has permanently suspended US President Donald Trump's account over risk of further incitement of violence after Capitol riots. The company said the decision was made after close review of recent tweets from US President's account. Trump accused the company of conspiring to silence him and suggested he may build his own platform in the future to counter Twitter. The UK has reported its highest daily COVID-related deaths with over 1,300 fatalities overnight as its toll nears 80,000. The US has registered a record 290,000 cases in a day, while its caseload has crossed 21.8 million with over 368,000 deaths. Pakistan has recorded over 2,000 new cases and 40 fatalities overnight, where the toll is approaching 10,600. Globally, the virus has claimed more than 1.9 million lives and infected over 88.8 million. And in football, Borussia Mönchengladbach edged leaders Bayern Munich 3-2 in their Bundesliga encounter. Jonas Hoffmann scored twice to hand Bayern their 4th defeat in 60-game reign. Bayern still top the German league with 33 points, while Gladbach are on 7th with 24. Those were the headlines and detailed stories right after a short break. Stay tuned. Welcome back, and now with the news in detail. Pakistan's Prime Minister Imran Khan says India is behind the terror attack that killed 11 coal miners in Balochistan last week. He was speaking after visiting the families of the victims in Quetta. The Prime Minister said ISIS has complete backing of India, which is trying to destabilize Pakistan. He said ISIS is working in collaboration with some other terror groups as well. Khan also hailed efforts of security forces and intelligence agencies to curb sectarian violence in the country. Pakistan has repeatedly asked the international community to take notice of India's state sponsorship of terrorism. A passenger plane with more than 50 people on board has gone missing after takeoff from the Indonesian capital Jakarta. Officials said the Sriwijaya Air Boeing 737 lost contact en route to West Kalimantan province. The Transport Ministry said search and rescue efforts are underway. The flight tracking service said the plane lost more than 10,000 feet of altitude in less than 1 minute. Sriwijaya Air said they are gathering more information on the flight. The Afghan government says the army has killed 13 Taliban fighters while repelling their attack in the Takhar province. The defense ministry said 8 other fighters were wounded in the retaliatory raids. Meanwhile, the Taliban have claimed to have killed 6 soldiers, including a commander, during the attack on a checkpost in the province. In a tweet, Taliban spokesman Zabiullah Mujahid said they have wounded 2 other soldiers. He added a Taliban fighter also died in the clashes. Pakistan says the Kashmir dispute is not just a territorial issue, rather a dispute about the soul of the people of Kashmir. Envoy to the UN, Munir Akram, said this while speaking at the webinar organized by the Pakistan mission. He said the recent human rights violations in Kashmir are alarming. Munir Akram said Pakistan has re-internationalized the Kashmir issue. The ambassador said Pakistan supports Kashmiris in their struggle for their right to self-determination. The Pakistani envoy also lauded heroism of Kashmiris for keeping their spirit of resistance alive for generations. He said every Pakistani has a deep sense of commitment to the Kashmir cause. The Indian government says repealing farm laws is off the table and the farmers should wait for the Supreme Court's decision. This comes after the 8th round of talks between the farmers and the government failed. The opposition has hit out at the government, saying it is trying to tire the farmers out by holding meeting after meeting. Congress leader Priyanka Gandhi Vadra said the government has crossed all limits of cruelty and ruthlessness. The farmers have resolved to continue their protest until the laws are repealed. The farmers have also decided to hold a meeting on January 11 and said they will not retreat even if court orders against them. 10 newborns have died in a massive fire that erupted in a hospital in India's western state of Maharashtra. Officials say 7 other infants have been rescued. According to the hospital authorities, the fire broke out at the sick newborn care unit of the hospital. The cause of the fire is yet to be ascertained, while the Chief Minister of Maharashtra has directed a probe. Prime Minister Narendra Modi has expressed grief over the unfortunate event. Twitter has permanently suspended US President Donald Trump's account over risk of further incitement of violence after Capitol riots. The company said the decision was made after close review of recent tweets from US President's account.
Twitter's move comes amid a big technical purge of online platforms used by Trump and his supporters. Trump accused the company of conspiring to silence him and suggested he may build his own platform in future to counter Twitter. Following the suspension, Trump has lost his most powerful megaphone with 88 million followers. Scores of politicians and celebrities welcome the social media giant's move to block Trump permanently. Meanwhile, President-elect Joe Biden said it was a good thing Trump is not attending his inauguration. Talking to reporters, Biden said the Congress will decide on Trump's second impeachment. He called for an investigation into Wednesday's storming of the Capitol Hill.
Let me begin by expressing my deep sympathy for the family of Capitol Officer Sicknick, who has died in the line of duty. Our sympathies and our concerns go out to his family, and the people responsible should be held accountable, and they will be.
Biden said Vice President Mike Pence is welcome to attend his inauguration.
North Korea's leader Kim Jong-un has called the United States his country's biggest enemy. Kim said Washington's hostile policies towards Pyongyang will not change regardless of who occupies the White House. Addressing the Congress, Kim pledged to expand North Korea's nuclear weapons and military potential. He said new planning research for a nuclear-powered submarine was almost complete. He added, Pyongyang will not misuse the nuclear weapons, and they were only meant to boost its defense capabilities. North Korea has poured vast amounts of resources into developing its nuclear weapons and ballistic missiles. Kim's remarks present a stark challenge to President-elect Joe Biden just days ahead of his inauguration. Israeli forces have fired rubber bullets and tear gas shells at a protest in occupied West Bank, injuring at least 7 Palestinians. Palestinian media said protesters were demonstrating against the building of illegal settlements in their Jarir town in Ramallah. It said dozens of protesters also suffered suffocation. Earlier, the Palestinian government also condemned Israel's decision to close the historical Ibrahimi Mosque in the Hebron city. In Somalia, a US airstrike has killed 5 key members of the alshabab militant organization. The US military said the strike killed the wanted militants in a joint operation with the Somali army near Saga Vianney. It said one of the slain leaders was involved in an attack on the US and Somalian military forces. The military said the targeted leaders also facilitated operations of finance, weapons, fighters and explosives. Meanwhile, Somali Army chief said 8 top terrorists were killed in the strike, including the regional head. Last week, a US aircraft carrier was deployed near Somalia to protect the troop withdrawal from Mogadishu. The UK has reported its highest daily COVID-19 related deaths with over 1,300 fatalities overnight as its toll nears 80,000. The US has registered a record 290,000 cases in a day, while its caseload has crossed 21.8 million with over 368,000 deaths. Globally, the virus has claimed more than 1.9 million lives and infected over 88.8 million people. More in this report.
In the first working week of 2021, most of the coronavirus-hit states registered record deaths and cases since the start of the pandemic. Canadian PM says the rising cases are frightening as he warned of a tough days ahead amid likeliness of lockdown's extension. The White House task force says the U.S. may have its own version of a more transmissible coronavirus that might be fueling the already aggressive spread. Some U.S. states are pulling in non-traditional vaccinators, including dentists, retirees, students, as well as the members of National Guard to aid the vaccination process. Meanwhile, the ICUs and the morgues are jam-packed in Southern California.
We are in the middle of a surge right now. There hasn't been a top yet, so this seems to be continuing, and we expect it to continue for at least the next few weeks. So while we're already surging and overwhelmed, we expect additional, we're anticipating additional needs. So, we're doing everything we can to try and set up more and more space.
The head of the World Health Organization expresses concerns over low and middle-income countries not yet receiving COVID-19 vaccines. He called on countries to order excess doses for immediately handing them over to the COVAX vaccine sharing facility. Meanwhile, in the UK, Mayor Sadiq Khan has declared emergency in the capital London as the hospital struggled to cope with the influx of patients. Australia is on high alert after cases of highly transmissible new variants of the coronavirus have made it into the country.
So long as the pandemic exists, so long as people are travelling, the risk of the virus seeping into the community is already there, and anything we can do to reduce that risk is really important, especially now when we're understanding what these strains are doing, and all the experts advise in due course that these mutant strains will become the dominant strain. So the virus is changing, and it's important for us to make sure we keep learning.
China has locked down Shijiazhuang, a city of 11 million people, to contain the country's worst coronavirus flare-up in months. Meanwhile, Saudi King Salman bin Abdulaziz Al Saud has received a vaccine jab 3 weeks after the kingdom kicked off its 3-phase inoculation program. Saudi Arabia says it will lift a ban imposed last month following the discovery of new strains of COVID-19 on international flights from 31st of March.
In Pakistan, 40 people have lost their lives to COVID-19 over the past 24 hours. This takes the country's death toll to over 10,598. The health ministry reported 2,007 new infections overnight. According to the ministry, the countrywide infections tally has crossed 499,000. The health officials said there are more than 33,000 active COVID-19 cases in the country. More stories to follow, but right after a short break. Stay tuned. Welcome back. 3 security personnel and 2 civilians have been killed by separatists in northwestern Cameroon. Governor of Cameroon's western region, Abba Fonka, said a group of secessionists attacked a checkpost in Babajao town. He said the region where the incident took place has been plagued with violence for over 5 years. Over the last 3 days, at least 7 Cameroonian soldiers were killed in the northwest and southwest regions. Cameroon's government blamed the attacks on the Anglophone separatists. Yesterday, 18 people, including 4 children, were killed in a suicide attack by Boko Haram in the western Cameroon. In Chile, hundreds of anti-government protesters took to the streets of Santiago calling for an end to inequality. Police in riot gear used water cannons to disperse the demonstrators. The demonstrators were calling for reforms to pension, healthcare and education systems. The South American country has been witnessing protests for more than a year now. In October, Chileans voted in favor of a new charter to replace country's Pinochet-era constitution. In the U.S. state of California, a federal judge has barred the government from overhauling the country's asylum system. The new rule, set to take effect from Monday, aimed to restrict asylum eligibility for immigrants seeking refuge in the U.S. It also directed immigration judges and asylum officers to deny broad types of asylum claims. A district judge granted an injunction sought by immigrant advocacy groups seeking to block the rule. He said the government recycled same legal claims made in their prior cases, rejected by several courts. The groups argued that acting Secretary of Homeland Security Chad Wolf lacked legal authority to impose the rule. The injunction undermines the Trump administration's last-minute efforts to solidify its hardline immigration policies. Japan has rejected a landmark ruling of South Korean court on wartime comfort women. In a telephonic conversation with his Korean counterpart, Japan's Foreign Minister Toshimitsu Motegi said the ruling violates international law. Motegi said the decision contradicts a 2015 accord between Tokyo and Seoul to finally and irreversibly resolve the issue. He called on Seoul to immediately take appropriate measures to correct these violations. Seoul's court ordered Tokyo to compensate women forced by the Japanese forces to work as wartime sex slaves during the World War II. The court ruled that Tokyo must give over $91,000 each to 12 women who were abducted during the war period. At least 3 people died as an avalanche hit a ski resort in Norilsk city, Siberia. The Russian Emergencies Ministry said the avalanche buried 5 tourist cabins with people trapped inside them. The ministry said more than 200 rescuers are working on the site looking for the survivors. It said rescuers have so far saved a family of 4 in initial relief efforts. Meanwhile, 2 people managed to get out from under the snow by themselves. The ministry has not confirmed the number of people trapped in the cabins. Worst snow blizzard in many decades caused by Storm Filomena has wreaked havoc in Spain's capital Madrid. The storm caused the closure of the capital's airport. Authorities said hundreds of drivers are stuck in their cars as the uprooted trees from heavy winds and snow have blocked the roads. Madrid's traffic authorities issued advisory for residents as more than 400 roads got blocked up by 20 centimeters of snow. Meanwhile, the southern city of Malaga government has activated emergency plan against flood risk due to the rainfall. Spain's State Met Agency reported the lowest temperature of minus 35.6 degrees Celsius ever recorded in the country. Scientists have found 2 dwarf giraffes in Namibia and Uganda. British Medical Journal says the giraffes have been diagnosed with skeletal dysplasia. With an average height of roughly 16 feet, giraffes are the tallest mammals on Earth, but scientists were stunned when they came across 2 giraffes suffering from dwarfism. In 2018, scientists discovered an 8.5-foot giraffe in Namibia. Earlier in 2015, they also found a 9'3" giraffe in Uganda. The British Medical Journal says in both cases, the giraffes had the standard long necks but short, stumpy legs.
Yeah, we were definitely all very surprised to see it, and then went about doing a little bit of research to figure out what was going on. Unfortunately, we'd probably need to do some genetic work if we want to understand more, but we can definitely tell that it is a dwarf giraffe.
Pakistan has improved its position on World Bank Ease of Doing Business Index in 2020. The country's position has advanced for the second consecutive year from 136 to 108. The highest progress of 58 points is reported in starting a business indicator, improving from 130 to 72. In its annual report, Security and Exchange Commission of Pakistan said World Bank acknowledged 6 reform areas. Pakistan is placed at second position in South Asian countries in terms of ease of starting a business. The integration of electronic services at federal level and business registration portals in Punjab and Sindh led to the index improvement. Deutsche Bank will pay around $125 million to avert U.S. prosecution. This comes as the latest blow to the German bank as it tries to rebound from a series of scandals. The bank faces charges over engagement in foreign bribery schemes and manipulating metal markets. It agreed to the payout as it entered a 3-year deferred prosecution agreement with the U.S. Justice Department. The bank said it took responsibility for the past actions which occurred from 2008 to 2017 and will fully cooperate with the authorities. Germany's largest lender has been struggling to restore profitability after 5 years of losses. China has established new rules for countering unjustified trade laws imposed by foreign states on Chinese companies and citizens. In a notice, the Commerce Ministry said the new working mechanism will assess the legal implications of foreign legislations. The notice said Chinese entities restricted by foreign countries may report to the ministry. It said the ministry will assess such cases for its potential violation of international law. The notice said the Chinese government will also enact necessary countermeasures in response. The new rules come amid an ongoing backlash against various Chinese companies from foreign governments, especially the US. Another weather situation from around the globe. And that's all for now. With the latest updates, you can follow us on social media at Indus.News.